Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be showing some of my favorite products as of recently and also share a bunch of different card making life hacks to kind of use these products and really expand the way that you get more use out of them. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. One of the first products I wanted to share is 4-inch mint tape, and I've been using this sort of like masking paper because it comes in quite a large roll. I've used quite a bit of it already, but you're able to just easily rip off a piece. On today's card, I'm going to cut out a heart die cut from the masking tape. So I'm just going to go on here, line it up, and then we'll run this right through our die cutting machine. Of course, we gotta share a little bit of awkward die cutting in today's video. All right, and then from this, we get a positive and negative mask that we can use on our card making projects. Masking paper can be a little bit expensive sometimes, so I love that this is just super easy. It comes on a large roll and you're able to get a lot of use out of it. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of line it up with one edge and then press it down. And I love that this creates a really simple frame for our card. I love using a heart for this type of thing. I'm gonna use the bold bouquet image and use these clusters of flowers. All right, you can do this sort of technique with many background stamps. The one thing I love about this bold bouquet is by putting it in kind of the corner of the heart there, it just frames the heart really nicely and gives it a beautiful image. So I'm gonna pick this up in my MISTI. I'm gonna do a resist, so I wanna use some clear sticky Versamark ink to ink up my stamp. And then we can stamp it down. And I'm going to go in with my little pressure tool here and just give it some good pressure so it all stamps. All right, I'm leaving the tape on while I do this, and I'm just going to pour over a layer of clear embossing powder. Then I'll heat set this until it's clear and shiny. All right, now let's do some blending, and I want to talk about how I pick colors recently. So I've always said that I'm not going to use a color wheel and not teach color theory, but my friend Kathy Zilski was talking about the color wheel, and I'll link to her channel down below. She's really great. So I purchased a color wheel, and I wanted to kind of share my thought process behind picking color blends because a lot of people ask about it. So anything in this sort of area, right, whenever you turn this around, is gonna work and blend really well together. Anything that's kind of a step away from each other is gonna be beautiful. I lately have been loving this kind of color area where I do purples, reds, oranges, and yellows, but a lot of people ask me what my favorite blends are, and this is kind of how I choose. You can either go with kind of a cool blend into warm. There's lots of amazing color options. One thing I want to warn you guys of is colors right across from each other. So blue and yellow, if you turn the wheel, you can get kind of like a red and a green across from each other. Purple and green is going to be kind of a no-go. Those colors are going to look good together on a card, but they're not going to blend without creating a brown on the card. So that's a very simplified color wheel. If you want more information, I might do another video on it, but that's sort of how I look at it. Just kind of do colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel, and it'll end up great. All right, so like I said, I love this color combination lately, and I've been using it quite a bit, especially for flowers like we're doing here. This happens to be Crown Me, Love Struck, Traffic Cone, and Shooting Star, and it's gonna make a beautiful blend. All right, so I'm gonna go in with Crown Me, and I'm gonna just use a blending brush from Gina. I love these blending brushes lately, and I'll just start at the bottom and start working my way up a little bit. Next, we'll move into Love Struck, which is this beautiful kind of berry red color, and you'll see this just blends together really easily, smooth, and beautifully. So if you're having a hard time getting smooth blends, or you're making kind of an icky color in between, you might want to try this color wheel. I'll link down a color wheel down below that I purchased. It's quite inexpensive, but it makes for really easy color selection if you are struggling with it. Now, after a while, you can kind of use the color wheel in your head once you kind of get used to it and have some color schemes that you like. But like I said, it really is nice to fall back on if you're looking for a new color scheme to try and you want to try something a little bit different than you've been using. And then into this bright Shooting Star color. I love this one. It really brightens up the background nicely and gives a super warm glow to it. Now you'll see a little bit of ink is still left on that embossing. I just go in with a paper towel and I'm easily able to go in and buff off any of that color. And you can see it turns nice and bright white again. Let me go in here and peel this tape off the surface. And the thing I love about this mint masking tape is not only is it great for masking, but I've got a great peace of mind that I know it's not going to rip my cardstock because it's the perfect amount of tack that it'll hold anything down, but it's not going to tear your cardstock. And then look at that beautiful result that we get from that masking. So to finish off this card, I'm going to pick a sentiment from the same stamp set. I love this set. It's got a bunch of great sentiments in it. One of my tips is to take the stamp set on the clear sheet and just see which one is going to work best for your card. You really get kind of an idea and vision on how the card is going to look then and what's going to work best for it. I think I'm Here For You is one of my favorite sentiments from this. I'm going to pull this out. Right, I'll use some anti-static powder tools since I'm doing some heat embossing. And then we'll ink it up with some Versamark ink and stamp my sentiment down. Don't give too much pressure with these fine detail sentiments, otherwise it'll squish the image. All right, then I'll throw over a layer of white heat embossing powder. Then I'll heat set that until it's nice and bright white. All right, now this is a great tip. I want this to fit on here without covering much of it up. So I'm going to go in and fussy cut the sentiment out. I've had lots of people see this tip from me and they went in and started doing it on their cards and they said that it looks amazing. I know this takes a little bit more time to go in and do this, but I find that it gives a really nice finished look, and it also takes less of your design than, say, having it on a rectangle. It kind of blends in a little bit more with the rest of your card rather than sticking out like a sore thumb. And then I'll place my sentiment down right there. And again, I fussy cut that out because I wanted it to take up less room. You can see it gives a nice finished look on the card. All right, you guys, there is the finished card. I loved that masked off heart with the bold bouquet stamp. And also choosing my colors was made super easy with that color wheel. The awesome part about it too is you still have this mask left. So if I want to, I can go in on another card base and I can start a whole nother design over here. And this one we're gonna have a white heart and a colored background. Now I also wanna share a little hack that you can make designs go off the edge. And in fact, it looks very visually pleasing rather than just to have it in the center of the card and gives it a different, unique effect. So here, I'm putting it off the left side of the card. All right, back to our color wheel. This time I think I'm going to go with some of these yellows to green and blue-green over here. And of course, like, you don't have to just stay in this little sector. If you want to continue down the steps, you totally can, but just make sure you're kind of going in order. All right, so I'm gonna go in with Shooting Star, Later Gator, Tropical Tango, and No Diving to create a beautiful yellow to blue gradient. All right, starting off with a little bit of Shooting Star. I'm going in again with my blending brushes, and I'm just going to bring it in from the top there, moving into Later Gator. And when it comes to ink blending, I do like to overlap here. Like I said, it'll create a nice color in between. These are translucent inks that are going to layer on top of each other to create new colors. And that's why you want to be careful with going across the color wheel, because you're layering them on top. If you go across the color wheel instead of right next to each other, it will create kind of a brownish color. Moving into Tropical Tango, we'll bring that color right in here. All right, and I'm finishing it off with a layer of No Diving. I love how these colors kind of blend together and create this really beautiful background. If we want to make it even a little bit darker at the bottom, we can bring in something like Midnight Snack and just add a little bit more color to darken that. I love that little bit of depth and dimension that that darker color adds. All right, now that this background is nice and inked down, I'm going to just go in with a bone folder just to make sure that the edges of my mint tape are fully sealed down to the cardstock. I just want to make sure, because I'm gonna go in with a little bit of water here, and I find that the mint tape actually holds up to a little bit of water pretty nicely. All right, going in with my Backsplash stencil. This was one of my first designs, and I love the geometric look of it when we're creating backgrounds like this. So I'm just placing that stencil over top, kind of holding it there, and I'm just going to go in with a little bit of water and spray it down onto my card. Now, this water is going to react with the ink because my inks are water-based, and so it's going to start kind of lifting off and bleaching that color and creating a beautiful lift technique. Now, I find that going in with a heat tool and letting it dry as well is going to kind of intensify that bleaching technique and lift off lots of that color to create a super textured and beautiful background. So check that out. It really is lifting off lots of that color and creating so much beautiful texture. All right, so it's time for the reveal of this background. And check that out. It stays super bright white, even with all of that water that we added. It did a great job of holding up to it. This was when we were blending, so it wasn't even the water stain. It lifted up a little bit while I was blending that corner, but check this out. That is why I love the masking tape for mint tape. It really does hold up to a little bit of water really nicely. All right, moving on to my next hack, I want to show how to create your own mirrored cardstock, and better yet, an ombre cardstock that you really can't purchase, and it's got tons of shine. Today for this, we're using a little bit of Lunar Paste, and you guys are gonna see just how amazing this is. All right, so I'm just taking a little bit of Lunar Paste on my finger here. You could use a blending tool totally if you'd like. I just like my finger because it's super easy to clean off, and I'm just going to go in here and spread down a little bit of this paste. All right, and it kind of sinks into the cardstock nicely and blends out beautifully. Here I use a little bit of Psych, and then we're going to move into a little bit of Later Gator. So we're kind of replicating the colors that we use on today's card. I'll go in here, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of Later Gator. Now I want to do it while the other color is still wet so that I can kind of blend in between them and create a nice smooth blend of color. And last but not least, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of Clear Skies to finish it off. All right, so just going in there to get a little bit of color down, and then we'll add down our blue and kind of blend it into the Later Gator color. All right, now to clean off my hand, I'm just going to go in with a little bit of water, and since it's a water-based medium, while it's still wet, it should clean off really easily. All right, so there we go. And I don't mind too much about my hand staining, but if you do use a blending tool, just make sure to clean out your blending tool right away with lots of water until it comes back to clean. Otherwise, it'll become kind of crunchy. All right, and with these, I like to go in with just a heat tool. They should dry super quickly, like in a matter of minutes, because we applied such a thin layer. But if you use a heat tool, it goes even faster. And as you dry it, tons of shine comes out and it becomes beautiful. All right, so once this is dried, check out that intense shine that it has. It's absolutely crazy, and I love the colors, how they're blended together. You totally couldn't buy a cardstock like that. So then I'm going to use these dies from Scrapbook.com that say thank you. I love these large script dies to finish off a card, super quick and easy. And I'm going to go in here and place them exactly how I want them down so that this ombre is gonna look beautiful on here. And I'll go in and just hold this together with a little bit of mint tape to run it through our die cutting machine. All right, it's time for another round of awkward die cutting. And now I'm going to share a life hack for when your dies don't have shadows to them, but you really want to add that little contrast against the edge. Then I'm going to take these die cuts and I'm just going to lay them down onto the color cardstock shadow that I want them to have. So here I'm placing these down onto some black cardstock for a little bit of contrast. All right, so I go in with my Fiskars Spring Assist scissors. I always like to cut around to just get rid of any of the excess and make it easier to fussy cut. And then I simply go in with my scissors and you can create as large or small of a border you want. Now this might seem a little bit tedious in the moment, but trust me when I show you it after and how it stands out on your card, it's going to make a huge difference. And if you guys have used die cuts with shadows, you totally know what I'm talking about. So you can really make any sort of die cut have a shadow just by fussy cutting around it. All right, you can see already there is tons more contrast with just that shadow. And then when we put it on a card like this, it's going to really stand out just so beautifully from that design. All right, you guys are gonna think I'm a little bit crazy, but we're gonna try to get rid of this ink spot. And the Mono Sand Eraser is a game changer when it comes to removing ink spots. This one was just, like I said, a blending ink spot. So it's not too deep into the cardstock because it was super light too. So I can just go in here, follow the edge of that heart, and you can see lots of that color is coming off. So even if it doesn't come off fully, at least it won't look as noticeable as that little mistake was before. We just go in there, keep kind of sanding it off the surface, and literally it's almost impossible to tell once you're done erasing that was ever there. All right, I love how this card looks. That black shadow behind the die cut was easy to do and it adds so much contrast. And I love that Lunar Paste die cut that we created to make the focal point really shine and stand out. All right, guys, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and leave me a comment down below letting me know which tip was your favorite that I shared. Also down there, linked is a full supplies list to all the products I used, and those links help support me, so I really appreciate you guys checking them out. Thank you so much for crafting with me today, and I'll see you very soon for another card making video. Have a great day. Bye.